All right, when you're in the interview, you're listening for either stories or inspiration. Okay? Generally speaking, the inspiration comes from the reason they're there. In other words, I'm here because I know I can make a lot of money. I know money is possible, or relationships, or whatever they're there for. I know this is possible. So they're living in an inspiration. They're in an inspiration that having a loving relationship is possible, and I want that because I've seen other people have that. So I know it's possible. And I'm inspired to be here to be able to let go of whatever it is stopping me from having that perfect, wonderful relationship. Does that make sense? The stories are the other part of the equation. What you're listening to in the interview is both. You're listening to their inspiration and you're listening to their stories. And out of the stories come the hidden decisions that keep them stuck in the stories. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So,
that's the discovery then, right? Now we're into discovery.
Right. Now, in the discovery, actually the interview, you're listening for these things, and you're listening for decisions. In the discovery, you're testing the decisions.
That's the muscle test.
Right.
Okay.
Okay? So you're not testing anything in the interview. You're just divine listening.
Okay.
Listening to this other divine being sitting across from you relate their story and their inspiration. The inspiration is why they're there. The story is what keeps them from being in that inspiration. So your job is simply not to tell them how to go from here to here, but to simply test the stories and see if they're true. Now, you believe this is true. Is it really true? Test it. And then when they see it's not true, suddenly the stories become what you want them to become, which is some bald-faced lie that they've made up to themselves that they've lived on for the last 20, 30 years or whatever. That's not real for them and has nothing to do with their inspiration while they're here. And how they can instantly step into that inspiration. Because they're there with you, you can show them how to do that. Isn't that amazing? Mm-hmm. Kind of neat, isn't it? I mean, really, when you think about it, it's kind of neat. You can take somebody from their story and go toward their inspiration in a matter of a very short period of time. An hour if it takes a long time, a half hour if you're half asleep and you want to do the job, 10 minutes if you really know what you're doing. So, I mean, it can happen in a flash, and it doesn't take very long to happen. So what I want you to do is team up with the same partners you had, and what I want you to do is test the person who was doing the listening. You're the one that's going to be doing a lot of the work, okay? Because what I want you to do is, after listening to that person, and if the person needs to recap, let them recap, okay? And by the way, the person listening can listen now, and you can ask pertinent questions about what they think is the issue about, and how the issue is related to a decision. And then you want to come up with a statement.
Well, the statement's part of discovery?
Yes. You want to come up with a statement about this decision or these decisions that you can test.
The statement being, what statement can I make that will change everything?
Okay, say it has to do with relationships. I'm just giving you an example. Okay, a person's saying, well, I can't attract my ideal mate. I can't attract the person I love. Nobody seems to love me. I'm all alone. I can't attract... These are the stories. And they're ongoing. Has nothing to do with inspiration, which is, I choose to have a perfect relationship, or whatever, or a lot of money, or health, or whatever it is you're looking for. So, with the story, they're saying, I can't have a good relationship. With the inspiration, they want a good relationship, right? They feel inspired to seek one out. That's why they're there. So what you're doing is you're testing. Okay, test the inspiration.
Okay.
I choose, and so what you're doing is you're testing the decisions, which actually, see, most of their decisions are related to their stories. You're going to be shifting their attention from the stories to the inspiration. And you're going to be testing the inspiration, knowing that it's going to be weak if you test correctly. But you want them to see that up front. You want them to be weak and see that their inspiration is weak. And they're going to feel defeated, and they're going to feel, oh, this will never happen for me and stuff. That's just the story, okay? But you want to test the inspiration just to give them something to compare after you do the session. Then you go back and test it, and then they see they're strong. It's like, oh, suddenly the blinders are off, and they say, well, this was possible. Anything is possible. You know? So that's what you're going to test. You're going to listen for the decisions related to the stories, and then you're going to say this. All right, let's just say I want to meet my soulmate, but my story is I can't attract anybody of value, and everybody I meet is bums or something, you know. But I want I want a loving relationship. So what you're going to do is test maybe several things. I deserve a loving relationship. You're going to test I can find a loving relationship. Test I choose to find a loving relationship. So the different areas of testing having to do with choice, deservingness, if that applies. However, deservingness is tricky because a lot of that has to do with just the decision of a child not to, or to avoid it. Deservingness is seldom the issue, by the way. It's mostly a decision by the child to say, well, I didn't going to do it. You know? Having relationships are safe, so you want to test safety issues. Or you want to discover how did that decision actually form. And by doing the yeses and the nos, you can start to get a pretty good picture by painting. It's like connecting the dots. This is yes, this is no, this is yes, this is no. After a while, you begin to get a picture. Well, that looks pretty interesting. Start to paint a real picture, and you can connect the dots, and suddenly you see this thing.
I deserve it. I can find it. And what was the third one?
Yeah.
Safety issue.
No, it was before that.
I choose to.
I choose
I choose to have this.
Choice, safe, deserve.
These are just a few. There's a whole
There's
plethora.
all-
And that's why divine listening is important. You have to listen for what they're telling you. And that's why falling into the unknown is a must here, because you don't know what you're going to ask this person. And me giving you a list of things to ask is not going to help you when it gets into it.
No, but I'm sensing that
That's true.
what I'm understanding from you is that just what I wrote down here, you want to test a question from multiple perspectives to drill down onto it.
Right.
So then you're going to ask the same question based on choice, same question based on safety, same question based on
They're
desire.
actually statements you have them make that you test. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you test for I choose to have a perfect relationship. I deserve to have a perfect relationship. It's safe to have a perfect relationship.
I can.
I
Yeah.
can have a perfect relationship. You might even test I am permitted to have a perfect relationship. You know, you can test all sorts of stuff. A big one is I forgive my parents, or I forgive my mother or father. I mean, there are issues that, you know, over time you're going to come up with these issues and you'll be able to hone into them. Right now you're just sort of asking a bunch of different questions and hope that you're going to come up with the issue. Okay? It would take a long time. We could spend probably 2 weeks just on this subject alone. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, in other words. If you're testing for something and it doesn't show up for you right away, then retest it or try it again.
In general, when you're going through the series, though, in general, some of the questions they're going to answer yes, and some they're going to answer no.
Right.
They wouldn't answer no to all of them. They wouldn't answer yes to all of them.
Probably not. No. Right. By having them make the statements and testing that during discovery, you're going to have a clearer picture about the statement that makes them go weak and that destroys their inspiration.
But what you have on there are the most basic elements for most situations.
Yeah, for a lot. And this is where the discovery gets tricky because there's a lot of factors that go into this. Check for forgiveness. I forgive my mother, father, ancestors. This is my decision. Check for that. In other words, if it's not their decision, whose decision is it?
Right. You've seen that a number of times in the session.
So if it's not their decision, whose decision is it? Maybe it's their ancestors' decision. They just happen to be reliving their ancestors' stuff. You know, who knows? That's why this is such a tricky thing, and that's why logical soul is so powerful, because in a very short period of time you can narrow things down that wouldn't normally even be thought about in other ways. So it's a way of doing that. So anybody else have any other ideas?
And then ask, I can do this in the presence of my mother, father.
Right.
Like, I would be strong.
Right. Now, in the money matrix method, we do that. There's a whole process. If you want to get the money matrix method, you want to go through that. I'm worth it. I can accept it. I can earn it. I'm committed to it. And then I'm committed, and then you test all those in the presence of mother, father, ancestors. So there are basically 7 points that, if you want specifics, if you want a formula, Money Matrix Method will give you that formula for money. Now, you can also use that with other issues, but it won't be specifically for money.
Right.
You could test it for, relationships or health or something like that. Yeah.
And you can really test strong for something, like money. I was strong. But when I put in the presence of my ancestors, I went weak. And in my stories, my ancestors were poor. They were farmers, right? And in my own life, how they showed up is I made a lot of money, and then I didn't. I couldn't keep it. I could not keep the level. I went back down, a little up, a little down. But then I had the ancestors on my side. Once I worked with that, it stayed up there. I mean, it's not even an issue anymore.
Right.
That's why the ancestors are so important.
Right. Does anybody need help with muscle testing? Anybody not know how to muscle test?
Not specifically.
Okay.
No.
Who wants to? You want to review? Somebody? And you just need to volunteer just to show. I just need to show muscle testing.
Demonstrate.
Okay. What you do is basically you have them hold your arm out to the right. I usually put my hand on their right shoulder, my left hand on their right shoulder, if you're right-handed. If you're left-handed, do it the other way. First of all, ask them, is this your dominant hand? Are you right-handed?
Yes.
Okay. So that helps. Now,
You always want to do the dominant.
usually. It works best that way. Dominant is more powerful, they feel more in control, etc., etc. Okay? So if you were left-handed, I'd just do the opposite on the other side. Okay, so you have them hold it out. I say, now, Evgeny, I'm going to muscle test here, and all I'm going to ask you to do is meet my pressure. Okay? I've got 3 fingers. I'm going to be pressing down about 3 pounds for about 3 seconds.
Okay.
You with me?
Yeah.
Okay. So say, my name is Evgeny.
My name is Evgeny.
Hold, and you have them, and you say hold, have them hold, wait 2-3 seconds, and then press. Say I have 2 arms and 2 legs.
I have 2 arms and 2 legs.
Hold. Okay. Say I have 7 toes on each foot.
I have 7 toes on each foot.
Hold. Okay, he does. Okay. Which shows me that, he's either from Siberia or we're not quite got there yet. I haven't got a yes or a no yet.
He's
Okay,
also fisting.
he's also very mindful.
No, say it again.
Okay, open your fist. If they're really tightening, just have them open their fists. Sometimes it helps. Say I have 20 toes on each foot.
I have 20 toes on each foot.
Hold. He does. Okay. So we're not getting anywhere this way. Okay, so sometimes even I, who have been muscle testing for years, will find some... hey, some guy to give me a hard time.
Is he present in his body right now?
I don't know. Let's see.
Because you did fine last night.
Say I'm in my body.
I'm in my body.
Oh, yeah. I think he's 2 in his body. That's the problem.
You did too good of a thing.
No,
That's right.
So what do you do?
Wait. Retest again for 7 toes and 20 toes.
Okay, say I have 20 toes on each foot.
I have 20 toes in each foot.
Oh, okay, good. All right, so what did you do different?
Yeah.
When you guys were talking how to beat the muscle test, and I asked the intuition how to do it, it gave me a signal and I tested it and I...
Always a wiseacre in every group. I think. Sometimes he's smart.
But what do you do at this point then, you're with a client and this exact thing is going on. You say, I can't test you today.
Yeah, but most people are not going to think, okay, how can I beat the
No,
muscle testing?
but nonetheless, this can come up.
No, there are things that you can
but
test. For example,
you want to be right. There's
something
something
you
there.
can do. You can tap on the top of the head. You can do all sorts of run meridians. Just do this. Get the meridians just going. I mean, there's a lot of different things you can do. Chiropractically speaking, I'm not going to teach you all that stuff
Right,
because that gets out in left field somewhere. My suggestion is just have them breathe, take deep breaths, relax, let it go. You don't need to override this. Let your subconscious speak. Do I have your attention, subconscious? Just speak to Evgeny's
It was for
Good
research
job.
purposes only.
Thank you for screwing up my demonstration there.
On tape.
Really?
Okay. So some people can override it if they choose. I'm just saying, ask their permission if it's okay if you test their subconscious. Do I have your permission now?
Yes.
Good boy.
Test.
Okay, now, say I have 20 toes on each foot.
I have 20 toes on each foot.
Oh, okay. I raise llamas in my backyard.
I raise who?
Llamas.
Oh. I raise llamas in my backyard.
Oh,
No.
no. I raise yaks in my backyard.
I raise yaks in my backyard.
Oh, okay, good. I live in Alabama.
I live in Alabama.
Oh, yes. Okay, good.
So again, you're in a session or you're trying to start a session and the client is not responding. At that point, what do you normally do? You say, it's not working today, come back, or?
You might.
Okay.
You might have to. If you're not getting yeses and nos, then you either need to correct that or...
I mean, is it possible, have you run into that? They come back and it works the next session?
yeah.
Okay, okay.
But I have also seen Michael in this situation and not give up until the client let go of whatever it is that
Granted, but he knows a lot more different avenues to get a response than I would.
Yeah, and I also don't remember what I did. So it's one of those things where if you play it by intuition,
Okay.
sometimes their own subconscious will tell you what is needed. Is there something, that, for example, if he's not testing correctly, I would ask him, is there something going on that I need to be aware of that you're not wanting to share with me or something? Is there
Okay.
something that you don't want to share with
Okay.
me, or is there something that I'm not getting here, or just be open and say, I'm not getting the right feedback. What's going on? Can you help me? Ask them to help.
So ultimately, when that's not happening, the client's blocking it.
One way or the other, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, one way or the other.
oftentimes it's fear to find out something.
Granted.
They don't know what's really gonna, they have to trust you now and open up to you, and that's dangerous to some people,
Right.
to
Yeah.
become vulnerable
Right.
like that.
Right.
you know.
Right. Good point. So yeah, it's of course he's done work with me a lot, so it's not an issue with him. Controlling your subconscious is so, and he's very capable of that. So he'll be walking on water to get here next time. So the point is that this is a special guy and he can do special things, but most people will test yes or no, weak and strong, that type of thing. So once you get a yes and or a no, you can start asking the question. How old were you when you first started beating your parents? Or whatever. You start asking questions that are relevant then. You start getting into the statements that I was talking about here and start delving into the issue. Thank you, Evgeny. I appreciate that. So 3 fingers, 3 pounds of pressure, hold, press that, just stabilize the shoulder and just test. The biceps muscle is the easiest muscle to test. Now, if you're testing yourself, you're all alone, nobody loves you, and you're all by yourself, and you want to know the truth about yourself, you can always test yourself, and this is the way you do it. You make a finger, no, not that way. You take your first finger and thumb and put them together, and you test that and say, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And if that tests yes and no, then you're ready to go. If it doesn't, if it says yes, no, then you go to the next finger. Okay? And then you test yes, no. And if that test is yes and no, then you're ready to go. If that's still yes and yes both times, then you weaken it just a little bit by going to the ring finger and thumb and testing that. You're going to the finger that gives you a no, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. So you just want to clear yes and no when you're testing. If I'm yes no matter what I test, then I want to go to the next.
In this muscle business, the no's the more difficult aspect rather than the yes. Would that not be true? It's more difficult to flesh out a no than it is a yes.
Not necessarily. I mean, you could be, if I do this, I'm weak on all of it. So I want to go up one, Mm-hmm. If you're weak on all of it, then you want to go up one.
Mm-hmm.
You just want to get a clear difference between the yeses and the nos. That's all.
Also notice if the client crosses their legs, or it's important that their feet are...
Yeah, it's a minor issue, but it is important. So usually you have them have both feet on the ground and both feet flat on the ground, and while you're testing, and that's usually you get the best results. Also, there are simple things like make sure they're not on drugs or heavy medication when you're doing, and make sure they're not drunk. That also helps. I mean, there's various things, because substances, drugs, alcohol, things like that can impair your ability to respond. Obviously, you don't want to do that. If the person is possessed, you don't want to work with possessed people, if at all possible. You don't want to go to an insane asylum and start doing muscle testing with people, because you know what's going to happen, okay? There's other ways of dealing with that Joe Vitale talks about in his book. What's the name of the book?
Which one?
0 point.
0 Point talks about that, where he does Ho'oponopono, which is you're at a safe distance when you do that and you're not harming anybody. So there are things that you can do. But just don't hurt yourself. Primarily, put yourself in a safe position. Be safe with yourself before you do any of this work. Yes, Dr.
The
Ross.
statement that you make is always a positive statement. I mean, you wouldn't say, I do not have 7 toes, or you do not have 7 toes.
Correct. You want to make
You
a
always say
positive.
you do, make a positive.
You want to frame your good point. You want to frame your statements in the form of an affirmation or a positive statement. Correct. In other words, what you're doing is you're making a statement about what inspires them. And when that statement finally rings true and comes true and is embodied in the body as true, then guess what? They not only feel that this statement is true on an intellectual level, they feel it in their body. So that's what you want to get. You want to get to that point to where inspiration becomes locked into their body and they feel that inspiration, not just emotionally, but physically as well. And when a person feels inspired physically, guess what's going to happen to their life?
They vibrantly come alive.
Exactly. They are transformed, visibly transformed in front of your eyes. So we're going to take a break now, and we're going to be back. Break up. Sorry we didn't have a chance to do it. We're going to break up in pairs, and we're going to do a session with each other. Okay?